It's a great afternoon. It's a great 6 o'clock. It's a great Thursday. You are with Sindisiwe on Fit Talk, and I am not alone as usual. I'm never alone. I don't like being lonely, but I'm here today on a very interesting topic. For a few months, the country has been going through a lot of physical healing, medical healing, if I may call it that. And many times we assume that healing it is when I go take medicine and I am treating a particular condition. But there are different levels of healing, and I think the one that we'll be talking about today is journeying with children that have got, teenager and a young adult that have healed, if at all, they have come to that point of completing the healing, and we will be knowing shortly. But the reality is that life never gives you everything that you desire, and life has a tendency of giving you anything the moment you are out of your mother's belly. And seemingly, and I have so gotten to receive this reality that I never always get what I want. And yet where I am now as a person, I'm grateful for every journey of my life. So I'll be journeying with two great young people, girl, teenager, and a young adult that will assist me on their journey of healing that they still could be going through now, how they have survived that journey of being children of parents that are divorced. Many times we find ourselves focusing on the adults and the decisions that we want to make, and it's your life, it's my life, to hell with everybody else. And yet many times there's people we care about, that we ought to care about, that when we make those decisions, we ought to take them into account. But before we get to this very touchy topic, I'd like my guests here to introduce themselves. Bahle, it's beautiful to have you on studio. Can you greet the audience?
Hello, I'm Bahle.
And your surname?
Kagaza.
Bahle Kagaza is on studio with me, and she will be answering a few questions. Tsulu, very nice and blessed to have you around.
Thank you for having me. I am Tsulu Felo Mapisa. I'm very, very happy to be here. Very, very happy to be interviewed by my mom as well. So, yeah, it's exciting.
That's exciting. Thank you so much. Sometimes I say that nobody chooses a parent. When there is everything that I look at myself and I would say, I really am a great woman. I'm great with all my faults. Having said that, you don't choose a mom, you don't choose a dad, you don't choose the decisions that you find the parents having to make, and you're in the center of it. And one of those decisions is, there came a time where I knew it was not working, and there was nothing I could have done with the fact that it was not working. First time around. Second time around again, dudes, it just did not work again. Had I known that I was not cut out for this, I don't think I would have done it. But if I would not have done it, then I would not have had the privilege to be called your mother. I would not have had the privilege to be called I may not be Bahle's biological mother, but I am a mother. I am a mother from all aspects. I'm just very keen, and I think I'm going to start with you, Tsulu, because you've kind of been longer in the journey, and you are now, you are now not just even a teenager. I could have lobola, although we would have to talk about that very seriously. When the parents separated, I think there's one question really that says, did you see it coming?
I think based on like my own experience, and I was very young when you and Dad divorced. I was 8. I would say I did see it coming in some ways, but you don't necessarily want to believe what it is that you're seeing. Or you know that it's kind of dysfunctional, but you don't really. At the end of the day, you think, oh, they'll work it out. I mean, they always do. So in as much as to some extent I saw it coming, I never really wanted to believe what I saw coming.
But
I did see it coming. I saw them fighting, but I didn't think that what happened would happen.
Sure. I'm meant to be stronger here, guys, but it looks like I might just. But I'll try my best, and I know I'm going to be asking a question that says, even though you saw it coming, and you wished, I'm sure, that it would not have happened. Was there ever a moment where you felt maybe they are where they are because of me, or if I could have done 1, 2, 3, maybe this could not have happened? Did you ever feel like self-blame, and without self-blame, a wishing that if I could have done this, they possibly would not have gotten to where they are?
I think on my end, personally, I didn't feel, especially because I was young, I didn't blame necessarily or feel any kind of self-blame.
Okay.
But I
Good.
I did though feel, I think in a lot of ways I shrunk myself. To try and make myself smaller, to try and not demand too much attention from anyone, because I can see that everyone's already going through their own thing. Shrinking myself in some ways made me feel like I was less stressful.
And yet you were not.
And yet I wasn't. But I felt like if I'm not stressing anyone, no one has a reason to fight. Because I'm not a noisy and confrontational person just in general. So I did shrink myself because there was too much chaos around me. And I think in shrinking myself as well, it was a bit of a defense mechanism to kind of protect me and give me kind of the shell, from everything that was going on. So although I didn't blame myself, I did shrink myself, and as I grew older, I realized that I actually had to unlearn that, because you can't be an adult shrinking yourself in spaces when you have to develop a voice, develop an opinion. So I did that without necessarily blaming myself. I did shrink myself, and it is behavior I needed to unlearn as I became a young woman myself.
Yeah. So in all of this, Tsulu must protect herself, but really it's not about protecting herself, because ultimately whatever that ought to happen is going to happen. And at some particular point, did you say you shrunk yourself? Yeah. That at some particular point you had to unlearn that.
Yeah,
almost like freeing yourself.
Yes, yeah. I'm still learning, I think, in a lot of ways, because nothing happens overnight.
Yeah.
So I still am learning. I still actually have to be conscious of the fact that, okay, you're doing this thing because it's your reaction to trauma. It's how you acted at 8. You're 20, 26 now. You can't do that. You can't shrink yourself in spaces where you need to be heard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does, you go through a process of learning and unlearning.
Yeah. Okay. Bahle.
I blame myself a little bit, but not a lot, because I knew that it wasn't my fault, because I knew I didn't do anything, and that it wasn't like me. I didn't physically do anything to them to make them do what they did. Yeah.
How did you deal with the little bit of fault in you? How did you come out of it?
I kind of had to talk to people about it.
Okay.
And tell people that I'm feeling this way and I want to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, this is very key. Now that this has happened, is there anything at all that makes you feel like this has tainted your lives, or it has defined or confined the people that you believe you ought to be or are?
100%. I think I had a very,
I didn't expect that.
100%. I had a very, very warped kind of view on love and relationships.
Yeah.
In fact, it's weird because it happened in different ways. Like in the beginning, when I was much younger, I had like this whole, I'm going to get married one day and I'm going to show mom and dad that this works.
Yeah.
You know, I had that kind of, and then I think late teen years to like early 20s, I was like, okay, I am just going to be very rich one day and just travel, and I don't want any kind of relationship. I am good without anyone. And I think that lasted longer than I'd like to admit. My whole warped sense of love, relationships. And I think because I'm generally an introspective kind of person, I did have to like look deeply and be like, okay, but what is it? What do you want? You know, and you don't have to have the same, be fearful just because your parents split up. So I did have to do, like I said before, a lot of unlearning. But yeah, 100%. I mean, you grow up most of your life not having your mom in like the conventional home. You need to find home in yourself. You need to find home in other spaces. You need to define what home is to you, because to you it's not just an address.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. It changed, you know, it changed my way of seeing things. But I think, again, because I'm very like self-introspective, it didn't necessarily kind of like completely mess up, you know, my idea of what love could look like, what a relationship could look like, what marriage could look like. I just needed to be very clear, and I think it became more apparent to me as I grew older that I needed to be very clear what it is that I want in my relationship, if I'm to have one. I needed to be very clear about how I communicate what I want to the next person. Kind of not make the same mistakes. I'll be comfortable in just making my own. So yeah.
But you are your own person.
Yes.
And this whole mess, if we call it a mess, it really cannot define you, can it?
Not much.
Not much. That's good. How have you made it not to define you?
Believing that because it happened to my parents, that it wouldn't happen to me, because I'm my own person, and like Tulu said, they made their own mistakes, and I'm also going to make my own mistakes, but they're not going to be the same mistakes.
Yeah. Wow, that's very encouraging. I hope somebody at home that is in a situation like this is hearing, not even from the failures, but from people that have become, or they were the recipients of the failures of their parents. That it doesn't mean that just because your parents have gone through 1, 2, 3, that you are now wearing a tag. Because there is this other truth as well, and I'm sure I do want to speak about it as well, because we always think, and there's always a presentation on the outside, that a home where mom and dad are there actually is non-dysfunctional. Do you really believe that that's true?
No, I don't. Personally, I don't think that's true. I think dysfunction can exist where there are two parents.
Yeah.
And I think what I've seen, not necessarily from my own experience, but just others, other people I've befriended that have gone through a similar experience, is that children would much rather come from a functional home than a dysfunctional home. And if functional means mom and dad live separately, then that's better than being in a home where mom and dad are at each other's throats every night, So, yeah, I definitely think that every home has their own things.
Dynamics.
And dynamics, But I definitely don't really believe that there's this one image, and if it's not, if they're not together, then I think there's different strokes for different folks. Everyone has their own story. Every family has their own challenges. But basically, children will always want to come from what is functional.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Children would always want to come out of what is functional. And while there are societal values, cultures, and expectations, that does not mean that at all the time they will give the kids what they are looking for. So I think this becomes very critical for both the children whose parents have gone their separate ways, that if their parents have gone their separate ways, but the kids or the children are feeling so grounded with either parent, we need to be grateful for that, as opposed to there is a whole lot of research out there, by the way. Research will tell you that children that have come from parents that have been divorced, they are high risk on 1, 2, 3. They can do funny things. They suffer from anxieties. And I'm thinking, I wonder which children, because again, if you're going to do a study and focus on those children that have been affected and leave the other that look like they're coming from very perfect homes, you will always have a very skewed, analysis, because you would have gone assuming that because these ones missed a particular parent, that their lives then become really, really, really just nothing, And I think as we are sitting here, Bahle, you are at peace.
Yes, I am.
You are at peace with mom being there all the time with you. And when it's time to be with dad, you are still at peace.
Yes, I am.
That's great. Zulu.
I am. I think with what would make anybody, any child, child of that situation be at peace is when parents know how to co-parent. Yeah. Which is extremely important to me. I think the most uncomfortable situation any child can be when they come from a divorced home is kind of feel like there's a broken telephone, or kind of feel like a messenger between mom and dad. And in the earlier years of, you and dad splitting, that was how I felt. Like I had to, dad said this, mom said this. And I did find myself, asking, I wasn't here. when these people got married, and they knew how to talk to each other. Now all of a sudden they don't, So that was a very uncomfortable position to be in until, I think with time as well, parents grew up and they realized, look, we have children together. We can't actually not communicate. And from there on, I think co-parenting just between you and dad was a breeze. When parents are able to do that, it does make the child kind of settle and breathe and not feel like they have to micromanage situations or micromanage personalities, So I think being at peace has, as a child from the situation, has a lot to do with how the parents handle post-divorce.
Yeah. I almost said you failures, which is inclusive of, hello, I'm here, and I'm not going to call myself a failure. If I was not cut out for it, possibly I was just not cut out for it. But what I think I'm hearing from Tulu's comment is very key. Can we not be at each other's throats? You made a mess. You made a mess. You rated 0 out of 100 when it comes to marriage, right? However you rated that 0, whether you believe that 0 belongs to you or it belongs to the other, bottom line is children involved here, already to their eyes, you have just failed them. The least you can do in the selfish decisions, because many times between the two people, there's always selfishness. It's always about me and me alone. But can you hear what they're saying? While you have gotten to that point of saying, we are no longer husband and wife, what they're crying for is, can you be civil? Civil means you can pick up the phone and say, your child is not well. Civil says, can I come see my children? As opposed to just abdicating and nobody knows because now we are nursing your anger issues because she did this, because he did this. Honey, if iphelile, but isiphelile, just make sure and be reminded that there are innocent human beings in the midst of it all. And the least we can do is to be there for them, emotionally and equally so that they are able to breathe and look at life in a different and in a more easier way than we would have already put them through. I want to speak to those that are going through divorce as we speak. There are crazy parents right there. They make sure that in the center of the divorce, they use the kid. The child becomes the baton. I'm talking about selfishness that comes from old men who will no longer grow younger. They are going forward and forward ever, which means sooner or later, if already they are not abomkulu, grannies, but they would use an innocent child in that marriage to hurt the other person. We can be bigger, we can be responsible by accepting our mistakes and living with them as civil human beings. And just to show how this notion is not 100% correct, that children who come from divorced parents, they amount to nothing. That's a lie. I want Bahle to tell you what class she's in. And I know that there are some sporting activities where she's really good at. She has represented not only her school, but she has represented the province, I think. Tell them, Bahle, that even though it may look like it's crooked, you took a decision that it was them that failed, not Bahle. And let's hear you.
So I am in first class math and I've represented South Africa in the World Choir Games.
Wow.
I am very good at swimming and at netball.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. How old are you, by the way?
14.
Wow. 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 No drugs there. Yeah, because we busy put stigmas up, and if the voices of the stigmas are louder, these children can end up believing. Here is a 14-year-old, he's first in maths, has represented the country, and is serious with sports. And I can tell you that if you were young enough, I would say to you, watch the space. Watch the space. Because what we're hearing now is not going to regress. Yeah. The only thing that can happen is to go all the way forward. All the way forward. But where is she coming from? From a so-called broken family. So the truth is, we are not successful, neither are we defined by where we come from. Yeah. How I wish the people that were in my earlier show did listen. That whatever happens to you, that happened 10 years ago, honey, it does not have power to define who you are. You may find that very experience, it is where your gold is sitting, that will make the world look and say, how on earth did this become possible when your past was like this? I am grateful. I'm proud of you, Batle. Only 14. How I wish my little boy was here. He said to me, I'm just TV shy. And I'm thinking, yes, boy, you're shy. Let me leave you there. Tell the audience, Tsulu, same thing. Who is Tsulu? What has been happening post this? That Cindy failed you.
Tsulu's a musician. She has 2 degrees from UKZN, BA Honours, cum laude was my last degree, and I'm currently working on my master's. Wow. Doing a Master of Arts in Popular Music. Tsulu also has opened a company with her mom, called Loud Africa. Tsulu's a writer, she's a songwriter, she's an instrumentalist, she's a singer. And I mean, it's funny how you mentioned just now about kind of whatever that situation actually in some ways propelling you, or being a catalyst to who you will become eventually. Because I think after you and Dad divorced is when I took my writing a little bit more seriously. Short stories turned to poems, turned to songs. Then somewhere through it, I realized I could sing. So although there was kind of pain in that situation, it's always profound. It's always profound how we can turn like a painful situation into an extremely beautiful story. So yeah, I do think that whether it's trauma or situations that are meant to, or that seem like they're meant to bring you down and make you amount to nothing, it's funny how through that I think God still finds a way to protect us and perfect whatever talent He's already given you, that you only discover when you are alone and when there's so much chaos around you. So yeah, we're not defined by our past. You know, I have a lot more growing to do, but I think sometimes I'm a little bit hard on myself, but I think sometimes I am able to look back and be like, okay, you turned out pretty good, you know? So I definitely am not defined by my past. I think if anything, it kind of it definitely was a catalyst for kind of pushing me and propelling me forward. Your experiences, I believe, it kind of how you react from those experiences kind of define who you will be. Not to say that you won't feel pain from a situation like that, but once you are receptive to kind of healing and growing, things get better. You know? So yeah, we're not defined by our past.
Yeah. That's awesome. Wow. I think I had to have this last show for today, and I hope that you had to have, us as your audience, so that you can be part of this sharing that you've just heard here now, and look back and say to yourself, I may have been beating myself so badly, I may have been negative, I may have been blaming. It's not worth it, sweetheart. They are gone. They did a shabby job as your mom and your dad together, but they still have a possibility, which possibly you have seen as well, where they could perfectly mother you alone, where they could perfectly daddy you alone. So all I'm saying is, I think what's key here, it is much more for the parents. You can be civil and work together because there is a human being in the center. I think there is a question that I think you guys, you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to ask me, and I'm more than willing to answer that question. And you can go ahead and ask me.
I think because we've both gone through kind of the exact same thing in different contexts. At Bahl's age, I would have asked the same question, and I think even at my big age now, it's a question that is interesting to me, which is, at the time, whether it was you and Dad or Bahl's parents were going through the divorce or made the decision to have a divorce, did you really think about the children at the time, perhaps the repercussions of that decision?
Yeah, I think the honest answer is that by the time the divorce happens, it's not an overnight. You don't wake up and say, I'm packing my things, I'm leaving. So by virtue of that, the delay is always, in my case, the delay was always, how do I tell my children that this thing is not working? So the longer I prolonged it, I wouldn't even say there was hope that I wanted it to work. By the time that decision is made, it would have been years of seeing this thing coming, and possibly of having tried one or two things. And I don't know how I can explain it, but spiritually, you will know when that cord is bound to cut. And I think that's when you know that my being here no longer serves any purpose for the kids as it serves any purpose for me any longer. So I would say that, I don't know about other parents, but in my case, I did think about my kids. I remember that even with them. I think that both instances. When I called your elder brother, I didn't know how to tell him. And yet when I tell him, instead of saying, oh my God, Mom, I just remember him saying, I saw it coming. So there is a level of the thinking.
Okay.
But I think where it got even more defined for me, then I was still very young. When I got to number 2, number 1s, number 2s. When I got to number 2, I was more matured. I feared God with everything I have. I would do anything to protect that marriage because of the son of my son, your brother.
Okay. Yeah.
And for the time that was there, even when I discovered things that literally just beat my mind, I thought, as long as this does not come to one day being known by my son. So I did think about the repercussions. I wanted to do everything to protect because I was now much more sensitive. In as much as I could have been then, when I saw it coming then, again, I couldn't just make a decision like that. But I think with this one, the more I had matured, the more I knew that if I could protect, I could have. But I could not. Yeah.
Here you go.
I wanted to ask you, and it's amazing that both of you are here and both of you have gone through the same experience. So mommy and daddy part ways. Mommy, daddy, they find partners. Life continues. How this whole remarrying story, whether we are part of the celebration or we are not part of it, what truly goes on in your heads?
For me, I think when you moved on, initially I thought it was too fast.
Yeah, okay.
And it, not knowing that, in of course, with you and Dad's divorce, you had gotten to the decision of, okay, this is not working, long before you actually went and signed the papers to say it's done. But from a child's perspective, this decision happened now. Like, besides the fighting, besides, anything else, the decision happened now. So for me, I felt like, this decision just happened like now in 2003 or whatever, 2005, she's married again. Like, for me, that was too fast.
Okay.
The celebration I was part of course, but I also I didn't know this man or the step parent. In as much as you are telling me that, okay, there's this new man now, and it's like, okay, I kind of was just in general like a bit distrustful. So I didn't know this man. I'm coming home for the holidays because I obviously lived in KZN with Dad, but I'm coming home from the holidays and there's this man in my house. So I didn't know that person, and it was too fast for me. I think as time went on, I was able to, if anything, just respect that man or that person, whether it's a mother getting remarried, I was able to respect that partner, that step parent, and in this case it was you getting remarried. I was able to respect that person, honestly, based on the fact that you then had a lot of my views on my step parent changed or were less of a worry or concern for me because you brother had and that was his dad, and at the end of the day there's nothing in the world I would not do for him, including understanding his parents. But personally, from my own point of view, I didn't know that person fully. And I do think that when the moving on happened, I felt extremely alienated. I felt the only person I could talk to is my brother, my older brother. And when parents remarry, the one who remarries first, it always looks like they wanted. They divorced. They didn't try hard enough. They don't care. it always will look like that initially. And with my father, he didn't remarry, so I became a lot more protective of him. Not to say that I was never protective of you, but I felt she owns her decision so much, she's good. You know, she doesn't need my protection. She doesn't need my permission. So yeah, you're almost always a little bit more protective of the parent that doesn't remarry first or as quickly, because in your mind as a child, you're thinking, this one
is the naughty one.
Yeah, you're thinking the parent that doesn't remarry would still had it in them to try harder, while the parent that has moved on as quickly, and I'm saying quickly in inverted commas because, you know, time is relative, but you tell yourself that the parent that moved on, they had no time anymore, you know? And whoever they bring, whether it's your dad getting remarried, your mom, whoever they bring is a stranger to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit of an alienating feeling for me. I did kind of feel like, oh, okay, mom's making her own new family now. You know, that feeling did come, especially because I think it was a year or so after you and dad divorced. Dad then moved to KZN to take a job there, and me and my brother followed him. And I had never lived in KZN, so I was like, oh, I want to do that. I was mainly following my brother, though, because he was very influential. But then it kind of felt like, although I knew that my dad and my brother are my family, whenever my brother and I would come to Joburg, I'd fit into my mom, my brother, and myself are a family as well. And when a stranger comes in, you kind of feel like, okay, so is there another family happening here? And how do I now worm myself into that or find a place in that? Do I shrink myself like I've always shrunk myself? How do I navigate this whole new setup with this whole other human being I do not know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky when parents get remarried. Yeah, I think what is important for me and what I've seen with other families that have become, they call them blended families, is the good parts that I've seen. When parents move on, usually the step-parent is still so loving to children that actually don't come from either him or her. And they are able to have, as a child, you're able to have not only your real father, but your stepdad
as well.
At a soccer game as well, you know. That takes a certain level of maturity. That takes a certain level of human being. Wasn't necessarily the case in my situation, but it is possible to have a divorce, remarry partners that actually care about your kids. So situations are unique.
I think that was a mouthful. I think that was a mouthful and quite deep. I wouldn't know how to comment on whether I had made it, or whether I tried hard enough. But as I had said, that I think by the time this thing happens, you would have, in that closet of that place called the bedroom, you would have navigated up until it jumps out of the bedroom. It's in the kitchen, it's in the lounge, and it can't be hidden anymore. So by the time it really is out the door, it means there has been quite some time, right from the bedroom, noise in the bedroom, up until the noise doesn't work in the bedroom. It's in the kitchen, it's in the lounge, it's in the cars. I mean, you are going to church, but you're screaming at each other, and church happens. After church, you get into that car and you continued where you ended. That is when it really has just gone so bad. But I think I do hear the part where we are saying to the child, and I'm hoping that somebody is listening out there, because to the mind of the child is the moment you move too quickly, quick is relative, but I think what they really are communicating is the truth. Whether you want to receive it or not is another story. But when you are quick to move on, in their heads, you long moved on, possibly while we are still in the marriage. And that is why, by the time you have your decree, there is somebody, an alien right inside. And they're thinking, hello, we must deal with you now. And I think what we've just said is very painful again, because this child has not healed completely on the first disappointment. And boom, there is a person that they don't know, let alone when the person will be cold enough not to care about your children. I want to say to women that are wanting to remarry, when your new partner does not know your children's birthdays, can never pick up a call, cannot ask, what is it, do they have food? Run away. Because if he cannot love your children, trust me, he does not love you. It doesn't matter that he can call you sweetie, honey, juice. If he has no time, if she has no time for your children, you will be out that door sooner. And I'm talking from experience. What is your comment? The moving on, and you are now realizing there's steps.
I also felt that it was very quick, because 1 minute mom and dad are together, then they're not, and then dad has another girlfriend. And then it's like she is the alien, but she makes us feel like we're the aliens. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like when we're at dad's house, we're like, oh, we're just visitors. We don't kind of belong here. But with mom, it's like she makes us belong, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They are actually the aliens. They are actually the aliens that come and invade a space. I want to challenge you, if you're a woman. Are you the one that is invading a space that was decreed by God, a holy place for that man and that woman? Holy matrimony, marriage. Did you become the alien that led to the marriage ending? Same with you, men. Did you look, analyzed, and felt that power is here? Because an alien will always look for opportunities. There are always opportunities. If you are entering into that woman's life, are you doing it because you love her? Or are you here to make sure that you enrich yourself however else you want to enrich yourself? Because whether we like it or not, and I'm just going to be asking this very last question, I think although I'm sensing, as Tsulu and Batle is talking, to say, if you invaded and you caused that pain, you didn't stop there. When you are now in their life, you continue to make them feel that they don't belong. I don't want to lie to you. You will pay. The time will come where you will pay for the very pains that you caused innocent children. It is one thing for them to now, they must feed and try and recreate another new family. That on its own is stressful. But I think the worst part is when you consciously decided that we are going to invade that home, break that marriage, and you move into that marriage. 1. 2, your second sin which you are going to pay for, it doesn't matter where, is when once you are there, you are also deliberate that we are going to make them feel so unwelcomed that when they visit either the mom or they visit the dad, they wish it was the day for either mommy or daddy to come fetch me, because you, alien, continue with your loveless love towards innocent people. And I think I would want, just from Batle and Zulu, to just give a word of encouragement.
I would say that they should not blame themselves, because it's not their fault that it happened. Yes.
Yeah. Don't blame yourself. Do not blame yourself. It's not your fault. But you will discover your faults when it's your turn. But I think that's very key. Don't blame yourself. It's happened. There's nothing possibly you can do about it. So look, word of encouragement.
Personally, I'd say I definitely agree with Batle's point of not blaming yourself.
Yeah.
I would also say that it is extremely important to communicate how you feel to your parents.
Yeah.
Because I think initially that was my one downfall of not wanting to tell, whether it was you or dad, what exactly I was feeling, explicitly so, like without any filter, without trying to spare anyone's emotions, but just really going at it. So communicate how you feel, because at the end of the day, they're still your parents. You can't parent yourself. And I think that is a little bit of the mistake I made, is trying to actually parent myself and being so emotionally independent and like closed off, until I was like, this is not working. So at the end of the day, they're still your parents. They love you no matter what. They'll support you no matter what. So just communicate. Everything gets better when you either talk about it, write about it, but just communicate.
Let it out. Let the steam out. Whether it's joy, let them know when you are happy. Because let me tell you, what the kids don't know is that when we are in that quagmire, we ourselves don't know how to behave. We wish we could be there, and all the skills of wanting to be there, somehow it's like they go out of the window. We want to tell them that things are not adding up. I'm also not okay. But because we are also thinking for them that we've already messed them up, we cannot be adding on the mess. We may find ourselves being quiet as well. However, I think what I'm taking from Utsulu is that if you are a child, talk to those parents. If they irritate you, tell them. But I think for us, let's find avenues as well to speak. Because I will tell you that the danger as well is where now Tulu is a woman, and now I dish my crap. My frustrations now. Tulu is a child. She's gone through hell because of my mistakes, but because time is not static, Tulu is growing. All of a sudden, I'm realizing now we've got commonalities here, and I begin to bombard her with a journey that is very similar to that journey where she looked and she said, shucks, my mom and dad just messed up. So what am I saying? The children are not there to be the psychologists. That's a nice one. They're actually not there. When we begin to do that, either it's out of just inability to discern who you are and who they are, or pure floating in what is called the jungle of life, where in your floating you end up telling all the similar secrets. I mean, I will never forget one day Tulu said to me, Wema, please stop telling me more and more about Unai, that thing that's going on there. And I thought, how? She's harsh. But when I was on my own, I thought, this is actually true. I cannot take now a similar experience which she went through and keep on dishing it on her. Because what am I saying she must do? But I think what is key in what I was doing, I was just trying to speak. But we need to go speak to people that are correct. One of the things that you said earlier, Bahle, was you began to speak about what you were feeling, which means you possibly were speaking to either your peers or your other people at home that were older, as opposed to keeping quiet. Silence, silence is not golden in this life. Speaking is golden, because in speaking, that's where you get help. I just want to close by saying thank you so much for coming. I thought this was going to be very difficult, but it's not. And I know my viewers know that I wear different hats, and people may even believe that I don't qualify. Believe you me, I'm not defined by my failures. We are not defined. You are not defined by the mistakes of the past, by the things that did not go well. Every human being, at some particular point, they make a boo-boo. But we are not to sit on that boo-boo. We are meant to stand up, dust ourselves, and life will be good again. So I hope you won't use your parents to blame them for who you are. They may have made mistakes, but your life is your life. And I hope that we as parents will not use them as a bait to get what we are wanting from each other or to hurt each other, but using those innocent souls. We've already messed them up. May we just stop messing them up. Thank you so much. I hope to see you next time. Fit with Sindisiwe. God bless you.